So first thing to start off is you were first a pastor, and then you became
Actually, I was first in communications. I did radio and television, then pastor, then politics.
And then into politics, right.
Yeah.
Very interesting change from religion to politics. So what motivated that change, and what's in politics for you?
A lot of it was sort of a process for me that I was looking at all the social pathologies that were going on in people's lives. Because as a pastor, it's the only job I know in the world where you see people at their best and at their worst. And there is no human condition that you don't personally observe. Talking to teenage girls who were pregnant, hadn't told their parents yet, they talked to their pastors. A young couple who are fighting over money, they talk to their pastor. Watching an old couple grapple with aging and how to try to manage a budget, sometimes having to decide between cutting their medicine in half or what they're going to eat. And then middle-aged people dealing with their parents who are aging and helping to decide, are they going to finally have to give up their homes and cars and live in an assisted living center. You see people when they are born and the greatest moments of their family's lives, and you see them when they die. You're there when the news is given to a family that their 10-year-old is dying of cancer, and you're there when they unhook the machines. So there's nothing that you don't see. And I do believe that it gives you a perspective on the realities of humanity that very few people ever witness.
Very interesting. On the topic of religion, where is religion's place in politics? It's very controversial. Issues such as abortion, gay marriage, they come up a lot, and it's often religion and politics are often tied to morality. So in your opinion, what is religion's place in politics?
Well, the founders were pretty wise. The First Amendment basically has two simple premises about religion: that the government should neither prefer nor prohibit the free exercise of religion. It's real simple. And that's all they said. And the restriction was not on the people, and the restriction was not on the church. The restriction was on the government. The government is forbidden to pick one religion over another and say, this is the church you have to attend, or this is how you're going to worship. The same token, it is forbidden to prohibit people from worshiping as they please. It's to give people the maximum freedom and to give government the maximum restriction. That's really the purpose of the First Amendment. So as it relates to law, everybody has a worldview. Everyone. Doesn't matter whether a person is a raving evangelical or a very devout Catholic, or whether a person is an Orthodox Jew, or whether a person is an outspoken atheist. All of those points of view have a worldview. They have a frame of reference. Any person from any point of view who runs for office and gets elected will bring his or her point of view. Now, what they aren't supposed to do is to impose a specific religious practice on everybody else. For example, if I'm elected, I can't help being who I am and what I believe. But I shouldn't try to say, okay, everybody now has to tithe their income and give 10% of all their earnings to my church. And I can't tell people they have to go to church on Sunday and they have to pray a certain way. None of that can be done. But it shouldn't prohibit me from praying or tithing or worshiping. That's the whole point.
Yeah. So on a slightly different topic, as a young Republican, I often have some few doubts about the future of the party. When comparing them to the Democratic Party, and we see a strong leader of politics aside of Barack Obama,
yeah.
It seems like there's great leadership and strength of the party. So what does your forecast look like for the Republican Party, and does the Tea Party fit in?
The Tea Party's been good for the country in kind of reminding us that government can't spend a bunch of money it doesn't have, borrow a bunch of money it can't afford to pay back, and that's been good. But no one segment ought to feel like that the Republican Party is uniquely theirs. I think sometimes people forget that the basic difference between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party is the role of the individual. To the Republican, a person who really understands it, it is that our freedoms and individual liberties are just that, they're individual. They are not given to me as part of a group. I don't have it because I'm a male, or because I'm white, or because I'm Baptist, or any of those things. I have it because I'm a unique individual. And every other person has those basic liberties as well. Sometimes the Democratic Party tends to see people as parts of a group. So they fight for women's rights, they fight for the rights of minorities, or they fight for unions. That's fine. But Republicans would say, wait a minute, no one is who one is because of the group. They are who they are because they're unique as individuals. And that's an oversimplification, on its face.
Right.
But I do think that Republicans tend to think that the individual has more of the answers. Democrats tend to think that the government has more of the answers.
And speaking of the Democrats and government, what's your take on how Obama's handling, or the lack thereof handling, with issues in the Middle East in places such as Libya and Syria?
I've been very troubled by the policies, particularly in the Middle East. And I've been all over the Middle East. And I've started going in 1973 when I was 18 years old. And I've been to Israel 15 times. I've been to Egypt and Syria and Lebanon and Iraq and Afghanistan and Jordan and pretty much any place in the Middle East. And what I think there's been is a policy of naivete that sort of assumes that it's more dangerous for the Israelis to build bedrooms in Judea and Samaria than it is for the Iranians to be building bombs. Because we put more pressure on Israel for freeze on settlements, our communities. Well, I find that somewhat disingenuous because we got Ahmadinejad who's over there building nuclear weapons as fast as he can find a way to do it. And that really is a threat. I don't know that the bedrooms in a community really threatens anybody.
And if you could do it differently, what actions would you take?
I would recognize the United States can't solve everybody's problems. From a foreign policy perspective, certainly we would want to offer humanitarian assistance where possible and appropriate. But the primary purpose of the United States government is to protect the United States interest. And that means protect our borders, protect our people, offer some aid and assistance when it's possible to do it, but never feel like we can be the policeman of the world and that we can go and intervene. And frankly, I don't buy into the idea that we can export our version of democracy and freedom and that it is always transferable to a culture that may not understand how freedom and democracy looks to the individual. Because there are a lot of cultures that have been historically under dictatorships for so long that to simply say, oh, you know what, we're going to just have an election. Well, an election, if you end up electing Hamas, as they did in Gaza, that doesn't turn out very well. So it may not be that electing the government is all that desirable if the government that's elected is worse than the one that was thrown out.
Right, exactly. And as a last question, will we see you running for president in 2012?
Well, Ryan, it's possible. I'm still very much considering it, and I've made sort of the time frame for me to look at it in this summer. But I might. I haven't ruled it out yet, but I haven't made the decision to jump into the water and swim yet either.
Yeah.